Chapter 1. The Book Beside Your Bed. Do not look for this book in a library. Do not search for it online. Do not ask who wrote it. This book only appears in one place, beside the bed of someone who has reached the end of repeating the same life with different excuses. And tonight, the room is quiet. Not perfectly quiet, because rooms are never perfectly quiet at night. There is the small electric hum behind the wall, the distant sound of a car passing somewhere beyond the window, the soft shift of your own body settling into the place that is holding it. And on the table beside you, where there should be nothing unusual, there is a book you do not remember placing there. The cover is dark, not black exactly, more like the color of water when the moon is too thin to touch it. No title, no author, no symbol pressed into the leather, only a faint line across the center, like a door that has been closed for a long time. You do not need to reach for it with your hands. This is not that kind of book. It opens when the part of you that has been trying to manage everything finally grows tired enough to stop guarding the door. That is why it opens only at night. Not because the words require darkness, because you do. Because the version of you that can receive what is written here is not the version that spends the day answering messages, making plans, performing confidence, checking numbers, calculating how far you are from where you thought you would be by now. The version of you that can receive this is quieter, older, closer to the truth. It is the part beneath the thinking, beneath the planning, beneath the long list of methods you have tried, and the longer list of explanations you have given yourself for why they did not work. That part is here now. Somewhere between being awake and being asleep, there is a threshold. Most people cross it without noticing, carried by exhaustion from one day into the next. But tonight, you are crossing it with the book open. And the first thing the book wants you to know is this: you are not broken. You have never been broken. You have been loyal to a story you did not choose. A story about money, a story about safety, a story about what people like you are allowed to receive, allowed to hold, allowed to become. A story handed to you before you were old enough to know it was a story, before you knew the difference between truth and atmosphere, before you understood that a child's nervous system can mistake a parent's fear for a law of the world. The book does not blame you for this. It does not blame the people who handed the story to you. It only asks that, for one night, you stop pretending the story is you. Each chapter of this book is a page. Each page will show you a room, an object, a scene, a small human moment, where money became something heavier than money was ever meant to be. A kitchen table, a number on a screen, a door not entered, a receipt from a braver life, a morning before the first check. And by the time the final page turns, it will be blank. That page belongs to you, not to your parents, not to your fear, not to the version of you who learned to survive by staying small, spending fast, refusing help, lowering the price, checking the balance before checking the body. To you. Find your position now. Let your shoulders sink. Let the jaw release even a little. Let the hands unclench, if they are clenched. Let the belly soften, the place that has held more worry about money than you may have ever admitted in daylight. You do not need to take notes. You do not need to remember everything. The book does not need you to study it. It needs you to let it read you. The cover is opening. The first page is turning, and the room on the page is already waiting. Chapter 2. The page that reads you back. The first page shows you a kitchen, late at night. The kind of kitchen where the overhead light seems too bright for the hour, buzzing faintly above the table while the rest of the house pretends to sleep. There are papers spread across the surface. Bills, maybe. Receipts. Envelopes that have been opened with more force than necessary. A pen lying uncapped. A glass of water no one has touched. Someone is sitting at that table. You cannot see their face clearly. The book does not show faces first. It shows posture. It shows atmosphere. It shows the way a person's shoulders learn to curve around dread. The way a hand hovers over paper as if the numbers might bite. The way silence can fill a room more loudly than shouting. You know this room. Maybe it was the kitchen you grew up in. Maybe it belonged to a grandparent, or a small apartment, or a house where the walls were thin and adults believed children could not understand what was being said behind closed doors. Maybe no one ever showed you the bills. Maybe no one ever explained the fear, but you felt it. Children are fluent in atmosphere before they are fluent in language. They know when the air changes. They know when laughter leaves a room. They know when money has entered the conversation, because the adults become smaller, sharper, quieter, or strange. And if that happens enough, the child does not say, "My family is under stress." The child does not say, "These people are doing their best inside a difficult system." The child does not say, "This fear belongs to them and not to me." The child says nothing. The child absorbs. The book is not showing you this kitchen to make you sad. It is showing you the moment before words, the moment before beliefs, the moment when money became a temperature in the air, a tone in the house, a shadow under a door. Because many people try to change their relationship with money at the level of thought. They say new sentences in the mirror. They read new advice. They promise themselves they will be disciplined this time, brave this time, different this time. And sometimes that helps for a while. But the first money story was not learned as a sentence. It was learned as a room. A room cannot be changed by an argument. A room changes when a new atmosphere enters it. So tonight, the book brings you back gently, not to trap you there, but to let another atmosphere enter. The atmosphere of this room now. The dark, the quiet, the weight of your body held safely, the breath moving in and out without needing proof that tomorrow will be perfect. Look again at the person at the table. They were carrying what they had been given. Maybe they worried because someone before them worried. Maybe they gripped because someone before them lost everything. Maybe they spent quickly because saving had never felt safe. Maybe they never talked about money because shame had taught them that silence was dignity. This does not make the story true. It only explains how it traveled. You did not invent the atmosphere you absorbed, and because you did not invent it, you do not have to defend it as your identity. The page begins to shift. The kitchen does not disappear. It softens around the edges. The overhead light dims. The papers on the table lose some of their sharpness. The person sitting there exhales, perhaps for the first time in years. And now, the book shows you something else. Another room. This room. The room where you are listening now. No bills on the table. No adult voices behind a wall. No child trying to decode danger from silence. Only you, at the threshold of sleep, with the book open and a different story becoming possible. The first room may still live in you, but it is not the only room anymore. Let that land in the body. There is another room. There is another story. And for tonight, that is enough. The page turns. Chapter 3. The kitchen table at 11. Michael was 8 years old when he understood that money made his parents small. Not literally. His parents were not small people. On ordinary days, they filled the house with movement. His mother sang while she washed dishes. His father told stories badly on purpose, because Michael laughed harder when he got the details wrong. There were mornings with pancakes too dark on one side, afternoons with baseball on the radio, evenings when the house felt warm in the ordinary way. A house can feel warm when no one is afraid of the next envelope. But at 11 at night, when the bills were on the kitchen table, his parents changed. The same two people became quieter, more careful. Their voices dropped into a register Michael only heard when money was present. They did not always argue. Sometimes arguing would have been easier to understand. More often, they sat in a silence, so controlled it felt dangerous. Michael would stand in the hallway, unseen, holding a glass of water he did not need, listening to the small sounds of paper being moved from one pile to another. A sigh, a pen tapping, his father saying, "Not this month." His mother saying, "Then when?" The question hung in the kitchen like smoke. Michael did not know what a due date meant. He did not know what interest was. He did not know the word overdraft or recession or medical deductible or any of the adult terms that make fear sound organized. He only knew that money had the power to shrink the people who protected him. And because they were smaller, the world must be larger and more dangerous than he had believed. He grew up, as children do, even when certain rooms inside them remain exactly the same. By 42, Michael had a career his parents would have called a blessing. He earned more than they had earned together in the years he remembered most vividly. He had a retirement account. He had a spreadsheet. He had the vocabulary of responsible adulthood. And still, whenever money required attention, the kitchen at 11 opened inside him. Not as a memory, as a state. His shoulders would narrow. His breathing would become shallow. A simple email about taxes could turn him into the boy in the hallway, holding water, listening for whether the world was safe. This is what the book means when it says a story can live in the body. Michael did not consciously believe that money made people small. In conversation, he could explain that money was a tool. He could talk about planning, earning, investing, long-term strategy. His conscious mind had learned new language, but the body had learned the kitchen, and the body spoke first. There may be a kitchen like this in you. It may not have bills on the table. It may have a parent opening a wallet and closing it quickly. It may have a grocery aisle where you learned not to ask. It may have a holiday where everyone pretended the gifts were enough. It may have a car ride where the adults thought the back seat was asleep. It may have one sentence, repeated so often it became wallpaper. We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. People like us have to be careful. Don't get your hopes up. The book does not ask you to hate that sentence. It asks you to notice that a sentence can become furniture. You can live around it for years without seeing it. Tonight, the page lets you see. Not to reopen the wound, to open the window. Because the kitchen at 11 is not the whole house. It never was. There were mornings in that same kitchen. There was light on the floor. There may have been coffee, toast, music, ordinary kindness. The room that taught fear also held life. This matters. It means the room can be re-entered differently. In the dark now as you listen, imagine the kitchen at 11 becoming less frozen. The paper's still there but softer. The people still worried, but no longer responsible for defining the limits of your life. The child still watching, but not alone anymore. You are with that child now, not to explain everything, not to fix the past, simply to place one steady hand on the doorway and let the child know this was their fear. You felt it, you carried it, but it was never the law. Take a slow breath. The kitchen remains in history. The story does not need to remain in command. The book turns the page. Chapter 4. The Price That Made Her Sick. The next page opens to a Tuesday in November. A conference room, a glass wall, a woman named Nina sitting across from a client who is saying something that should have felt like good news. We would like to double your rate, the client says. Nina smiles because she knows the shape of professionalism. She knows how to keep her face steady, while her body reacts to information faster than her mind can interpret it. The client continues speaking, appreciates her work, wants more of it, says the number again, casually, as if it is just a number, as if it has not just walked into Nina's body and pulled an alarm. Her stomach turns. Not a thought, not a belief, a physical wave of nausea rising before she has time to decide what she thinks. Her hands remain folded. Her voice remains calm. She says the right things. She thanks the client. She expresses enthusiasm. And then, with extraordinary politeness, she negotiates the number downward. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough for the nausea to pass. Enough for her nervous system to say, there, safe again. For a long time, Nina told herself the story everyone would have believed. She valued long-term relationships. She did not want the client to feel overextended. She preferred to grow gradually. She was being strategic. All of that sounded reasonable. Fear is very skilled at sounding reasonable. Years later, when she finally looked back with the kind of honesty that does not arrive until a person is tired of betraying themselves, she understood that the number had not been the problem. The visibility inside the number had been the problem. The receiving inside the number. The quiet implication that her work could be worth more, without her first suffering more, proving more, apologizing more, exhausting herself more thoroughly. Somewhere in Nina's history, receiving more than a certain amount had been coded as dangerous. Dangerous because wanting too much made you arrogant. Dangerous because being paid too well made others resent you. Dangerous because success made you visible, and visibility invited correction. Dangerous because in her family, the person who rose too high was expected to come back down quickly, preferably before anyone noticed. So her body helped. That is the painful tenderness of old protection. It is not trying to destroy you. It is trying to keep you safe, according to rules written in another room, another decade, another version of your life. The book shows you Nina because you may know this mechanism in your own way. Maybe you have lowered the price before anyone asked. Maybe you have explained why something good was not really that good. Maybe you have turned down an opportunity and then felt strangely relieved, as if escape and loss had worn the same coat. Maybe you have felt your body resist exactly what your mind said it wanted. This does not mean you are ungrateful. It does not mean you are broken. It means the body learned a threshold, and thresholds can move. Not by yelling at the body. The body does not respond well to being shamed for protecting you. It has spent years doing its job, even if the job description is outdated. Tonight, the book offers it a new message quietly enough to be believed. More can be safe. Receiving can be safe. Being seen can be safe. Not all at once, not as a command, as a possibility placed gently beside the old instruction. Imagine Nina after the meeting, sitting in her car, hands on the steering wheel, the contract in her bag, the smaller number now safe enough to accept. Imagine a version of her, years later, returning to that moment with compassion instead of disgust. She does not say, "Why did you ruin it?" She says, "I see what you were trying to protect." Then she adds, softly, "You do not have to protect me that way anymore." Let that sentence move through you now, only if it fits. You do not have to protect me that way anymore. The body may not believe it completely. It does not need to. Tonight is not asking for complete belief. Only 1 degree of softening. 1 degree is enough for the page to turn. Chapter 5. The bonus that tried to leave Elena received $7,000 on a Wednesday in March. It was a performance bonus, though the word performance made it sound colder than it felt. She had worked hard for it, stayed late, solved problems no one saw, carried details that would have fallen through the cracks if she had not been the kind of person who noticed cracks. When the deposit arrived, she stared at the number for a long time. $7,000. More money than she had ever received at once. She felt proud. Then, almost immediately, she felt something else. A pressure behind the ribs. A quickening. A sense that the room had become slightly too bright. She did what responsible people do. She made a plan. Some into savings. Some toward debt. Some for the dental appointment she had been postponing. A flight home for her mother's birthday. A small amount for something beautiful, because she was trying to become the kind of person who could enjoy money without guilt. The plan was reasonable. 6 weeks later, the money was gone. Not gone in one dramatic mistake. Not lost to one impulsive purchase that could become a lesson. It had leaked away through 100 small openings, each one defensible. A bill that arrived early. Groceries that cost more than expected. A gift. A repair. A dinner she said yes to because saying no would have required explaining a boundary she did not yet know how to hold. When she added it up, the math did not tell the whole story. Money had not been spent. It had escaped. Or perhaps more accurately, some part of Elena had escorted it back out. The book shows her sitting on the floor of her bedroom with receipts around her, not crying exactly, but stunned. The way a person feels when they realize a pattern has been running with such intelligence that it has been disguising itself as circumstance. She thinks of her mother then, not one memory, many small ones. Her mother saying, "Large amounts never stay." Her mother laughing when she said it, but not like it was funny. Her mother opening the refrigerator with a look Elena now recognizes as calculation. Her mother receiving tax refunds or gifts or small windfalls. Then watching something break, someone need help, some urgent thing appear to restore the family to the familiar edge. Large amounts never stay. Elena had never written the sentence down. She had never chosen it, but her nervous system had known it as if it were weather. So when $7,000 arrived, her body entered a quiet emergency. Emergency does not always look like panic. Sometimes emergency looks like reasonable decisions made too quickly. Sometimes it looks like generosity without boundaries. Sometimes it looks like buying relief. Sometimes it looks like returning to the number that feels like home, even if home is uncomfortable. The page is not showing you Elena to shame her. It is showing you the intelligence of the pattern. Patterns do not survive for years by being foolish. They survive by attaching themselves to things that sound responsible, kind, practical, necessary. They survive by making the old number feel familiar and the new number feel dangerous. And because they are intelligent, they require tenderness. You do not rip a pattern like this out of the body. You let the body discover, slowly, that a larger number can sit in the room without disaster following it, that more can arrive and stay, that holding is not hoarding, that receiving is not theft, that keeping what came to you is not a betrayal of everyone who had less. Tonight, the book places a new sentence beside the old one. Large amounts can stay. It does not force the sentence into you. It simply leaves it on the page, where the sleeping mind can return to it again and again without argument. Large amounts can stay. The emergency can rest. The money does not need to leave to prove the story true. The story can soften, and the money can remain. Elena gathers the receipts, not to punish herself, to learn the shape of the door through which the money left. She notices, for the first time, that every leak had an emotion attached to it. Fear, guilt, obligation, a desire to feel normal again. This is where freedom begins, not in a perfect budget, in seeing the emotion at the door before it opens. Rest now. If money has ever left your life in ways you could not fully explain, let the old shame loosen by 1 degree. A leak is not a character flaw. It is a doorway asking to be seen. The book has seen it. The page turns. Chapter 6. The door where she stopped. For 11 years, Sarah stood at the door of larger rooms and did not walk through. The rooms changed. That is what made the pattern difficult to see. 1 year, the room was a promotion that would have placed her in front of people who already respected her. Another year, it was an invitation to speak. Another, a chance to raise her prices. Another, a partnership with someone whose name carried weight in her industry. Another, a move to a city where her work would have had more air. Different rooms, same threshold. And each time Sarah stopped. She had reasons, good ones, intelligent ones, reasons that survived casual inspection. The timing was not right. The offer had complications. The city was expensive. The audience might not be the right fit. The price increase could alienate loyal clients. The partnership might compromise her independence. Some of those concerns were real, but beneath the concerns was something more consistent, a sensation. The moment before she crossed into something larger, her body tightened. Her thoughts became unusually sharp, searching for evidence against the door. And because the mind is loyal to the body it inhabits, it always found evidence. This is what fear often does at thresholds. It does not scream. It researches. It builds a case. It becomes articulate. For years, Sarah thought she was being discerning. Sometimes she was, but not always. Eventually, she noticed the pattern because the loss began to feel familiar, not failure, something quieter. The ache of watching herself stop at the exact place where her life was asking to widen. The book opens to Sarah standing in a hallway. At the end of the hallway is a door. Light moves under it. Not dramatic light, ordinary light. The kind that comes from a room where people are talking, working, belonging. A room where her name is already expected, though she has not yet entered. She stands with her hand near the knob, not touching it, near it. There are pages taped to the wall around her. Each page contains a sentence. Who do you think you are? Do not embarrass yourself. Stay humble. People will criticize you. If you rise too high, you will have farther to fall. Wanting more is dangerous. These sentences were not all spoken to her directly. Some were absorbed from glances, from family stories, from the way people reacted to ambition when it belonged to someone else, from the silence that followed someone else's success. A child does not need a lecture to learn that visibility is dangerous. Sometimes a room teaches it with a pause. Tonight, the book does not ask Sarah to burst through the door. This is not that kind of story. The book is more patient than motivation. It asks only that she see the door clearly. See the hand hovering near the knob. See the old sentences on the wall. See that the room on the other side is not a monster, not a punishment, not a public humiliation waiting to correct her for wanting a larger life. It is only a room she may or may not choose in waking life, with practical steps and real decisions, and the grounded courage that change requires. But tonight, before any outward choice, something smaller can happen. The body can learn that looking at the door is safe, then standing closer is safe, then touching the knob is safe, then perhaps, one day, turning it. Thresholds are not crossed first in the world. They are crossed first in the nervous system. Maybe you have a door like Sarah's, a larger room you keep explaining away, a price you almost charged, a conversation you almost began, a level of visibility you keep delaying until you are more ready, more healed, more certain, more impressive, more protected from the possibility of being seen imperfectly. The book does not mock your caution. It bows to the part of you that learned caution for a reason. Then it whispers, very gently, the door is not locked. It never was. The key was always a feeling, and feelings can change by 1 degree in the dark. The page turns. Chapter 7. The house built from other people's voices. The next page does not show a person. It shows a house. At first it looks ordinary. A small house on a quiet street. Porch light on. Curtains still. The kind of house you might pass 100 times without wondering who built it. But as the book brings you closer, you notice the walls are not made of wood or brick. They are made of sentences. Be realistic. That is not for people like us. Money changes people. Do not get ahead of yourself. Stay grateful for what you have. Rich people are selfish. Asking for more is greedy. You are too sensitive. You always start things and never finish. Who would pay you for that? Each sentence is a board, a nail, a beam. Some are thick with authority. Others are thin but numerous, repeated so often they became insulation. The roof is made of warnings. The floor is made of old embarrassment. The windows are small because someone once told you not to expect too much light. Inside the house, everything is arranged around survival. A chair for waiting, a table for calculating, a closet for desires that were too inconvenient to name, a mirror that reflects not your face, but the version of you other people found easiest to understand. This is the house many people call personality. They say, I am just cautious. I am just practical. I am not good with money. I am not someone who asks. I am not built for risk. I am the kind of person who needs to keep things small. Sometimes these sentences are true descriptions of a season, but sometimes they are only architecture. A house built around you by voices that may have meant well, voices that may have been frightened, voices that were repeating what had been repeated to them. A house you lived in so long that you mistook its walls for the edges of yourself. The book asks you to stand in the center of the house and listen, not to the words first, to the age of the words. How old is the sentence that tells you not to ask for more? How old is the sentence that says money will leave? How old is the sentence that says successful people are not safe to become? How old is the sentence that says you should be grateful enough to stop wanting? Many of these voices are older than your adult life. Some are older than you. That matters, because a voice can be familiar without being wise. A sentence can protect one generation and imprison the next. The book opens a window. Night air enters. The first sentence loosens from the wall. Be realistic. It falls softly to the floor. And beneath it, you see another sentence written in your own hand, though you do not remember writing it. Reality is larger than what frightened people taught me to expect. Another board loosens. That is not for people like us. Beneath it, people like us become new people by choosing new rooms. Another, asking for more is greedy. Beneath it, asking honestly is how I stop abandoning myself. The house does not collapse. This is important. You do not need to destroy everything you inherited in order to be free. Some beams may remain. Some old wisdom may still be useful. Some caution may become discernment. Some gratitude may become beauty instead of a cage. But the walls that were built from fear can change. The book is not giving you a new personality tonight. It is opening windows in the old house. Let the air move through. Let the stale sentences feel, for the first time, the possibility of weather. You are not the house. You are the one who can step outside. The page turns. Chapter 8. The Receipt from a Braver Life. The book opens to a receipt. A small white strip of paper, curled at the edges, lying on a table in a room you do not recognize. The ink is fading, but not enough to hide what is written there. At first you expect numbers, a total, a date, a purchase. But this receipt is different. It is not a record of what was bought. It is a record of what was finally allowed. Line 1, charged the full price. Line 2, accepted help without apologizing. Line 3, said no before resentment became the payment. Line 4, let the compliment land. Line 5, kept the money for longer than fear preferred. Line 6, stopped confusing exhaustion with virtue. Line 7, walked into the room. At the bottom, where the total should be, there is only one sentence. A braver life costs the old self its excuses. The receipt belongs to someone who looks like you. Not exactly. The book never shows exact futures, because exact futures make the mind argue. It shows emotional possibilities. A version of you, sitting at a table with shoulders that do not rise toward the ears when money is mentioned. A version of you who has bills, responsibilities, imperfect days, ordinary problems, but who does not treat every number as a verdict on their worth. This version is not rich in the cartoon way. There are no dramatic symbols of wealth, no marble staircase, no car in a driveway shining under impossible light. There is something better. Room. Room in the chest. Room in the calendar. Room in the voice. Room to receive without immediately turning receiving into debt. The book lets you watch this version pay for coffee without performing shame. Open a bank app without bracing. Send an invoice without shrinking. Hear praise and say thank you. Only thank you. No explanation attached. The changes are small. That is why they are believable. A life does not usually become new through one grand gesture. It becomes new through hundreds of moments, where the old reflex reaches for the steering wheel and, for once, your hand remains. The receipt is proof of those moments. Not proof that everything became easy. Proof that something became different. And perhaps this is what abundance actually begins as. Not more first, but different first. A different posture around what is already here. A different response to what arrives. A different amount of time between receiving and sabotaging. A different willingness to let good things remain in the room long enough to become familiar. Look at the receipt again. There is another line appearing now. Line 8. Stopped paying for belonging by becoming smaller. This one may land somewhere tender. Many people have been paying this price for years without seeing the receipt. They paid by lowering their voice, by lowering their rate, by making their needs convenient, by laughing at disrespect, by pretending they did not want what they wanted, because wanting it openly might make someone uncomfortable. The old self called this peace. The braver life calls it expensive. Tonight, the book does not ask you to change all of this by morning. It only asks you to see the receipt, to know that every time you abandon yourself to keep an old room calm, something is being paid. And every time you choose one honest inch of expansion, something is being purchased back. Not bought with money, bought with truth. The receipt curls in your hand. On the back, in faint handwriting, there is one more sentence. The life you want is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It is waiting for one honest action. The page turns. Chapter 9. The man who learned to let good things stay. James had never been able to receive a compliment. People who loved him knew this. At first they found it charming, then tiring, then sad. Someone would say, "You did that beautifully," and James would step away from the words before they could reach him. It was nothing. Anyone would have done it. I got lucky. It was not as good as it could have been. He did not mean to reject kindness. He thought he was being humble. But humility has a different texture. True humility can let a good thing land because it does not need to own it forever. James was not letting things land. He was batting them away before his body had to tolerate the discomfort of receiving. For a long time, he did not connect this to money. Compliments were emotional. Money was practical. Different categories. Then one afternoon, after a client praised his work and paid an invoice early, James found himself doing the same thing with both. He answered the praise with a joke. Then he spent most of the payment within 48 hours. Not on anything foolish. That would have been easier to condemn. He paid things, fixed things, helped someone, bought something he had needed. Every action could be defended, but the emotional movement was unmistakable. Something good came in. His system found exits. The subconscious does not sort receiving into neat categories. It either allows or it does not. If the body learned that receiving creates obligation, then praise feels like a debt. If the body learned that being seen invites correction, then recognition feels like exposure. If the body learned that good fortune is followed by loss, then money becomes something to move quickly before it hurts you by leaving on its own. James's work was not to become greedy. This is where many people misunderstand receiving. Receiving is not taking more than your share. It is allowing what has already been offered to complete its movement toward you. A compliment offered and deflected leaves both people holding something unfinished. Money earned and immediately pushed away leaves the nervous system unconvinced that it can survive having more. Rest offered and interrupted teaches the body that peace is unsafe. So James began with small things. A friend said, "I appreciate you." He felt the old exit open, the joke, the deflection, the quick return compliment. He did not take it, not perfectly, not gracefully at first. He simply breathed and said, "Thank you." 2 words. They felt enormous. The next time, he let a client praise the work without explaining what could have been better. Then he let a payment sit in the account for 1 week before assigning every dollar a job. Then 2 weeks. Then he noticed that the world did not punish him for letting good things stay. This is how the body learns. Not through being told 1,000 times that it is safe, through experiencing safety in small, repeatable doses. Tonight, the book offers you one of those doses. Rest is here. Permission is here. A good thing is present, and it is not asking you to justify why you deserve it. Let it stay. Do not manage it away. Do not improve it. Do not turn this moment into a task. Let the body experience receiving something simple. The support beneath you, the darkness around you, the voice moving slowly enough that no part of you has to chase it. Let this be received. Let this be allowed. The man who learned to let good things stay did not change because one sentence convinced him. He changed because staying became familiar. Tonight, staying becomes a little more familiar. The page turns. Chapter 10. The River Under the Floor. At the center of the book, there is a page that makes no sound when it turns. It opens to a floor, old wood, dark grain, a room empty except for the moonlight lying across it in a pale rectangle. At first, nothing moves. Then you hear it. Water. Not rain. Not a faucet. A river, somewhere beneath the floorboards, moving in the dark. You kneel and place one hand against the wood. The vibration is faint but steady. The river has been there the whole time, running under the house, built from other people's voices, under the kitchen at 11, under the rooms where Nina lowered the number and Elena watched the bonus leave and Sarah stopped at the door. Under every pattern, something still moves. This is important. The goal is not to manufacture abundance from nothing. The goal is to stop confusing the floorboards with the river. Fear can become so familiar that it feels like the structure of reality. Scarcity can become so ordinary that a person begins to believe money must always be fought from a reluctant world. But beneath the learned responses, beneath the inherited sentences, beneath the emergency protocols that have been running for years, there is still movement. Life moves, exchange moves, care moves, opportunity moves. Money moves too, though it often changes its name before people recognize it. A conversation, a recommendation, a skill, becoming useful at the right moment, a chance to ask, a chance to stop saying yes to what drains you, a chance to let a payment remain, a chance to open the account without turning the number into a god. The river is not mystical in the way people sometimes use that word to avoid responsibility. It does not excuse practical action. It does not pay bills for you while you refuse to open envelopes. It does not turn avoidance into wisdom. A river still asks you to build channels, to repair banks, to notice where debris has gathered, to stop damming the places where it wants to move. But the movement itself is not something you create from nothing. It is already there. The book shows you the floorboards because many people spend their lives polishing the floor while starving for water beneath it. They perfect the surface. They appear composed. They say the right words about goals and discipline and gratitude. Meanwhile, below, the river waits for one honest opening. Tonight, you do not need to tear up the whole floor. You only need to notice that the river exists. Place one imaginary hand on the boards. Feel the faint movement underneath the old story. This is the part of you that still knows how to receive. This is the part that was not destroyed by the kitchen, only covered. This is the part that did not disappear when money became fear, only went underground. And in the deep hours, when the house is quiet, underground things can be heard again. The book does not say, force the river. It says, listen. Listen until you can tell the difference between the sound of fear in the walls and the sound of life moving underneath. Listen until the body remembers that flow is not a performance. Listen until one plank loosens. Not tonight, perhaps, or perhaps tonight in a way too subtle to name. A little more space around the old contraction. A little less panic in the first thought of morning. A little more willingness to ask, to hold, to receive, to keep, to let what comes complete its movement. The river under the floor continues. Whether you hear it or not, the page turns. Chapter 11. The chapter written in sleep. If you are still following, let the following be simple. And if you have already drifted, let this pass beneath the door of the sleeping mind. The book does not close when your attention loosens. It does not require the sharpness of waking concentration. In fact, some pages are only understood after the conscious mind has stopped trying to hold them in place. All day, the thinking mind makes lists. It evaluates. It protects. It compares the present to a future it has imagined and a past it has not fully forgiven. It asks, how do I fix this? How do I get there? How do I make sure nothing falls apart? Useful questions, sometimes. Exhausting questions, often. But sleep speaks another language. Sleep does not argue with your beliefs one by one. It sorts experience. It loosens emotional knots. It allows the body to process what the day could only accumulate. It gives the nervous system a different condition. Less control, less performance, less supervision. That condition matters. Because many money patterns are maintained by constant supervision. Checking, rechecking, planning, replanning. Mentally spending money before it arrives. Mentally losing it before it has a chance to stay. Rehearsing scarcity so thoroughly that the body begins to treat rehearsal as preparation. Tonight, the book offers the system a different rehearsal. The kitchen can be seen without being obeyed. The old sentence can be heard without being believed. The larger number can sit in the room. The door can be approached. The receipt can be read. The compliment can land. The river can move. These are not instructions. They are scenes. And scenes have a special power in the deeper mind because the deeper mind remembers through atmosphere. It remembers through image, through feeling, through repeated contact with a possibility, until that possibility becomes less foreign. So while you rest, the book continues to write in the only ink the sleeping mind recognizes: felt experience. Not pressure, not demand, not a promise that tomorrow will be transformed beyond recognition. A gentler thing, a new familiarity. The body can become familiar with holding, familiar with receiving, familiar with not bracing the moment money is mentioned, familiar with the idea that a good thing can enter and remain without punishment, familiar with the possibility that you do not have to earn rest before you are allowed to receive it. If thoughts arise now, let them be thoughts. If the mind says, "Will this work?" let that question drift like a leaf on dark water. If the mind says, "I have heard things like this before," let that be true too. This page is not competing with anything. It is only offering another atmosphere to the room where the first story was learned. The book is patient. The body is learning in its own time. The sleeping mind is not being forced. It is being invited. And invitation is often the only doorway the deepest parts of us will trust. Rest now. The chapter written in sleep does not need your eyes. It is being written where the old story lives. The page turns slowly. Chapter 12. The blank page. At last, the book opens to the page it mentioned at the beginning. The blank page. No kitchen, no receipts, no doors, no old voices forming walls. No river beneath the floor, just space. It may feel strange after so many scenes. The mind expects another image, another person, another lesson, dressed as a room. But the book gives nothing, because this page cannot be shown to you. It has to be allowed by you. The blank page is not empty because nothing remains. It is empty because, for once, the old story has not been permitted to write first. That is what makes it sacred. For years, perhaps, the first line was written before you arrived. Money comes in, and the first line said, "It will leave." An opportunity appears, and the first line said, "You are not ready." A larger room opens, and the first line said, "Stay where it is safe." Someone offers appreciation, and the first line said, "Deflect it quickly." A morning begins, and the first line said, "Check the number before you check the body." The old story was fast, very fast, so fast it felt like truth. The blank page is slower. It creates a pause where the automatic line used to appear. In that pause, something new becomes possible. Not a fantasy, not a grand declaration, a first honest sentence. Perhaps it is, "I can let this stay." Perhaps, "I can ask without apologizing." Perhaps, "I can open the bill and remain in my body." Perhaps, "I can charge what the work is worth." Perhaps, "I can stop paying for belonging by abandoning myself." Perhaps, "I can be the first person in this family to let money be neutral." Perhaps, "I do not need to shrink for love." The book does not choose the sentence for you. It refuses. That refusal is a gift. So much of your money story was chosen before you had a choice. Tonight, the blank page returns choice to the part of you that has been living under inherited handwriting. Imagine the page now. Not glowing, not dramatic, just paper, quiet, waiting. At the edge of the page is a pen, but when you reach for it, you realize the pen does not write with ink. It writes with responses. The first response, tomorrow morning. The first breath before checking. The first time you notice a familiar fear and do not immediately obey it. The first honest price. The first no that keeps your energy intact. The first yes that does not come from panic. The first dollar allowed to remain without being assigned to anxiety. The first compliment received without escape. This is how the blank page is written. Not all at once, not with a perfect plan, with responses that slowly teach the body a new world. And maybe tonight, as you listen from the edge of sleep, you do not know what your first sentence is. That is all right. The blank page does not rush you. It only asks that you stop letting the old story grab the pen before you arrive. Rest with the page. Let the nervous system feel the absence of command. No one is telling you who you must be. No inherited voice is allowed to finish your sentence tonight. No fear gets to write the first line while you are not looking. There is only space, and space is not nothing. Space is where a new life has room to begin. The book remains open. The page remains blank. And in the quiet, some part of you may already know the first honest line. Do not force it. Let it come by morning, or by next week, or in the moment when money enters the room and you suddenly feel 1 degree more present than before. 1 degree is enough. 1 degree is how rivers change direction. 1 degree is how a door becomes approachable. 1 degree is how a person discovers that the old self was not a prison, only a room they had not yet left. Rest now. The blank page is not waiting for perfection. It is waiting for honesty. The page turns, though nothing has been written yet. That is how you know the writing has already begun. Chapter 13. Morning before the numbers. Sophia was 43 years old. The first morning she did not check her bank account. It was not a dramatic decision. No vow the night before. No app deleted. No productivity system. No journal entry titled New Life. She simply woke up and did not reach for the phone. For 14 years, the first act of every morning had been the same. Before coffee, before the bathroom light, before looking out the window, before remembering her own body. She checked the number. The number told her whether the day could begin. The number told her whether she was safe. The number told her what mood she was allowed to have. At least, that is what her nervous system believed. But on this morning, something in her stayed still. Her eyes opened. The ceiling was there. The pale gray of early light was gathering behind the curtains. A truck passed outside. Somewhere in the building, a pipe knocked softly awake. Her hand did not move. And before the number arrived, before the world had been measured, before the old ritual could install the day's first emotion, Sophia noticed something almost too quiet to name. Okayness, not happiness, not certainty, not proof that everything would work out. A simpler thing, a baseline underneath the checking, a small stable ground that had been there before the bank app, before the balance, before the daily verdict. She lay there for 14 seconds. Later, she would remember the number exactly because it was so small. 14 seconds of being okay before the numbers. Then she checked. The balance was not magical. The day was not transformed. There were still bills, tasks, messages, decisions. But something had happened before all of that. And what happens before the first thought matters. Tomorrow morning, when you wake, the book asks for no performance. Do not search for fireworks. Do not demand proof. Do not turn healing into another test you can fail. Simply notice the first moment before the old story finishes loading. Notice the body, the breath, the hands, the place in the chest where money usually enters as pressure. If everything feels the same, Let it be the same without despair. Old patterns were not written in one night, and they do not need to disappear in one night to be changing. If something feels different, even slightly, do not rush to explain it. Let it be small. Small is how the body trusts change. A little more space before checking. A little less shame around the number. A little more willingness to open what you used to avoid. A little more patience before spending away discomfort. A little more breath at the threshold of receiving. These are not small things to the nervous system. They are evidence. Evidence that the page is not blank because nothing happened. Blank because something new is being written in a language quieter than thought. Morning will come in the ordinary way. Light, sound, responsibility. The same world, mostly, but perhaps not the same you meeting it. Perhaps 1 degree more open. Let that be enough. The page turns toward the end. Chapter 14. The number that was not a verdict. Before the book can close, it opens to one final object from ordinary life. A screen. Not a mystical screen. Not a vision. Just the small rectangle of light many people reach for before their feet touch the floor. On it is a number, a balance, a total, a figure that should be information, and yet, for many years, may have carried the emotional authority of a judge. The number is not cruel. It is not kind. It is not proud of you. It is not disappointed in you. It is a number. But somewhere along the way, a number may have become a verdict. It may have been given the power to decide whether you were safe, whether you had failed, whether you were behind, whether you could breathe, whether the day was allowed to begin with peace or had to begin with punishment. The book shows you this, because one of the quietest forms of freedom is the moment a number becomes information again. Think of how often a life is pulled out of its own center by a number. The number in an account, the number on a bill, the number someone else earns, the number of years you think you have lost, the number of months you have been trying, the number attached to rent, debt, income, age, savings, time. Numbers are useful. They help people build bridges, pay workers, measure medicine, plan meals, make decisions. The problem was never the number. The problem was the story placed on top of it. A low number became, I am unsafe. A high number became, something will take this. A larger price became, who do I think I am? Someone else's number became, I am falling behind. A bill became, I have failed. A bank app became, I must ask permission to feel okay. The page shows a hand hovering over the phone, not touching it yet, just hovering. This is the pause the whole night has been moving toward. Not a dramatic awakening, a pause, a little room between the body and the old interpretation. A place where the number can return to being a number before the inherited story grabs it and speaks first. Tomorrow, or the next morning, or some morning after many returns to this recording, there may be a moment like this. You will see the number, or think of the number, or remember the bill, or hear the price, and the old reflex will begin to rise. Maybe the chest tightens, maybe the jaw locks, maybe the mind starts building a future from fear in less than a second. And then, perhaps, another part of you will remember this page. The number is not a verdict. It is information. Information can be responded to. A verdict can only be endured. That difference is enormous. If the number is information, you can breathe. You can open the envelope. You can make the call. You can set the boundary. You can ask for the payment. You can create a plan without making the plan a punishment. You can see reality clearly without kneeling before it, as if clarity and despair were the same thing. The book is not asking you to deny numbers. It is not asking you to float above practical life. It is asking you to stop handing your entire nervous system to a symbol on a screen. Look at the number in the book. Watch as the ink underneath it changes. Where it once said, "This decides who you are," it now says, "This tells you what needs care." That is all. What needs care. Not what deserves shame. Not what proves your worth. Not what limits the rest of your life. Only what needs care. A bill needs care. A debt needs care. A price needs care. An income needs care. A fear needs care too. And care is very different from panic. Care can open the envelope slowly. Care can look at the total. Care can ask for help. Care can learn. Care can repair. Care can say no. Care can say, not today, but soon. Care can say, I will not abandon myself because a number frightened me. Panic burns the house down to prove there was a fire. Care turns on the light. Tonight, the book turns on a small light beside the number. Not bright enough to wake you harshly, just enough to see that you are still here, still breathing, still more than the figure on the screen, still able to respond. Let the body begin, by 1 degree, to separate information from identity. The number is not you. The number is not the future. The number is not the judge. The number is a page, and pages can turn. Chapter 15. The first honest action. The next page contains no grand vision. This may surprise you. After all the rooms, after the kitchen and the door and the receipt and the river, some part of the mind expects the book to reveal a destiny, a final instruction, a dramatic map with a glowing path drawn across it, the exact choice that will fix everything by morning. But the book is wiser than drama. It shows you a table. On the table are small objects, an unopened envelope, a pen, a phone turned face down, a pair of shoes beside the door, a calendar with 1 empty square, a draft email, a glass of water, a price written on a piece of paper and then crossed out, then written again, slightly higher. These are not symbols of a perfect life. They are symbols of the first honest action. Most people delay transformation because they imagine it must begin at the size of the life they want. A massive decision, a dramatic departure, a complete reinvention, a morning where courage arrives fully formed and fear finally excuses itself from the room. But the body rarely trusts massive change. The body trusts evidence, small, repeated evidence. Evidence that opening the envelope does not end you. Evidence that asking the question does not destroy belonging. Evidence that letting a number sit in the account does not summon disaster. Evidence that saying no can create peace instead of abandonment. Evidence that a new price can be spoken while the body trembles and still be spoken. Evidence that good things can remain. The first honest action is not always impressive. It may be almost invisible to other people. You may open the bill you have been avoiding and place it on the table without spiraling into shame. That may be the first honest action. You may write the real price before you write the safer one. You may not send it yet. You may only let yourself see it. That may be the first honest action. You may leave a payment untouched for 24 hours, not because the money has no purpose, but because the body needs to learn that receiving does not require immediate expulsion. That may be the first honest action. You may look at a job, an offer, a client, a conversation, and admit, I have been calling this impractical because I am afraid of being seen. That may be the first honest action. You may wake and breathe before checking. 14 seconds, 7 seconds, 1 second. That may be the first honest action. The book does not measure the action by how impressive it looks. It measures by whether it breaks the agreement with the old story. A tiny action that breaks the old agreement is more powerful than a dramatic action performed from the same fear. This is why the book has been so slow. It has not been trying to motivate you into a burst of effort that the old nervous system will reject by afternoon. It has been making a different action feel possible inside the body. Possible is the doorway. Not easy, not guaranteed, possible. The table remains in front of you. The envelope, the pen, the phone, the shoes, the calendar, the draft, the water, the price. One of these may call to you more than the others. Not literally, not with sound, with the soft pressure of recognition. You already know, in some quiet place, where the first honest action lives. The mind may try to make it complicated. It may list reasons to wait. It may turn the action into a project so large that it becomes impossible to begin. It may say, "Not until I have a complete plan. Not until I feel confident. Not until the timing makes sense. Not until the fear is gone." The book lets the mind speak. Then it turns the page back to the table. The envelope is still only an envelope. The email is still only an email. The first breath is still only a breath. The honest price is still only a number written on paper. The first action does not need to carry the whole future. It only needs to interrupt the old past. Let this settle now. The life you want is not waiting for a perfect version of you. It is waiting for one honest action. Not tonight, if your body needs sleep. Not in panic. Not as proof that this recording worked. In the morning, or when the moment is real, let the action be small enough that the body can survive it, and honest enough that the old story cannot remain completely intact. Small enough to do, honest enough to matter. That is the doorway. That is the pen. That is how the blank page begins. Chapter 16. The book under your skin. By now, the book is no longer only beside the bed. Something of it has moved inward, not as memory, necessarily. You may not remember every room. You may not remember Michael's kitchen, Nina's nausea, Elena's missing bonus, Sarah's door, James learning to let praise stay, Sophia's 14 seconds before checking. That is all right. A book like this is not meant to be memorized. It is meant to leave a trace. A trace is quieter than a lesson. A trace is the feeling that returns before a familiar reaction completes itself. The half-second of space before lowering the price. The breath before deflecting the compliment. The sense, while opening the bank app, that something in you is watching kindly instead of judging harshly. The strange calm that appears for no obvious reason while you are doing something that used to make you brace. This is how the book travels with you. Under the skin, in the pause, in the body remembering that it has options. Many people try to change by collecting more information, more strategies, more explanations, more techniques. Information has its place, but a person can know 10,000 things and still be ruled by the one feeling they have never learned how to stay with. The feeling of being seen, the feeling of receiving, the feeling of holding more, the feeling of looking directly at a number, the feeling of wanting something without apologizing for the want, the feeling of not rescuing everyone from the discomfort of your growth. Tonight, the book did not give you more information to carry. It gave you practice being near those feelings while held by darkness, slowness, and rest. That is different. The body may trust it differently. In the days ahead, the old story may still speak. It probably will. Old stories do not vanish politely because a new one has entered the room. They repeat themselves. They test the doors. They ask if you are serious. They wear the voice of logic, humility, responsibility, loyalty, realism. When that happens, do not panic. Do not decide nothing changed. Simply notice. The old story is speaking. That noticing is already a separation. Before, the story may have spoken as you. Now, perhaps, it can be heard as a story. A story can be respected without being obeyed. A story can be thanked without being followed. A story can be placed back on the shelf when it no longer belongs to the life you are building. The book under your skin is not loud. It will not argue with fear. It will place a hand on the page and wait. It will remind you of the room you are actually in, not the kitchen at 11, not the hallway outside the larger room, not the house built from sentences that were never yours. This room, this breath, this body, this next honest action. That is where your life can be touched, not in the imagined future where you are finally fearless. Here, where fear is present and 1 degree of freedom is still possible. Carry that 1 degree. It is small enough not to frighten the old system, powerful enough, repeated over time, to change the direction of a life. The book is under your skin now. The page remains. Chapter 17. Morning before the world enters. Morning will not arrive like a movie. It will arrive as it usually does. A little light, a sound outside, the body returning from wherever it has been, the mind beginning to collect itself. Names, tasks, messages, the shape of the day coming back online. Before the world enters, there is a small space. You may miss it. Most people do. It is the space before the phone, before the number, before the first obligation, before the old operating system fully reinstalls the familiar roles, the responsible one, the worried one, the one who must check, the one who must brace, the one who must earn the right to feel okay. The book asks you to notice that space, not to make it special, not to turn it into a ritual so complicated that the mind can fail at it, only to notice the body waking, the breath already moving, the room still holding you, the day not yet interpreted. This is morning before the world enters. In that space, you do not need to be healed. You do not need to be certain. You do not need to feel abundant, powerful, transformed, chosen, or ready. You only need to not hand the pen away immediately. That is all. Before the first check, one breath. Before the first fear, one noticing. Before the first automatic story about money, one quiet sentence. The number is information, not identity. Or, the old story can speak without driving. Or, I can meet this day one page at a time. Choose the sentence that does not feel fake. This matters. The deepest parts of you do not trust false brightness. They trust honesty. A sentence does not need to be grand to be medicine. It only needs to be true enough that the body does not reject it. If I am safe feels too far away, try. I am here. If money can stay feels too far away, try. I can learn to let money stay. If I allow abundance feels too far away, try. I can allow one breath before fear. If everything is changing feels too far away, try. 1 degree is enough. The book respects what is true enough. Start there. When the world enters, let it enter. Open the phone if you need to. Make the coffee. Answer the message. Go to work. Pay attention to practical life. This recording is not asking you to become less grounded. It is asking you to become less governed by the old atmosphere while you do grounded things. Open the bill with breath. Check the account with breath. Send the invoice with breath. Raise the price with breath. Receive the compliment with breath. Keep the money with breath. Let breath be the thread between the book at night and the life in daylight. The book opens in the dark, but it is tested in the morning, not by perfection, by noticing, by returning, by choosing, once not to abandon yourself in the first minute of the day. If you can do that, even imperfectly, the page has begun. Chapter 18. The page you carry back. Before the book closes, it gives you one page that is not meant to stay in the dark. It is thin, almost weightless, the kind of page that looks as if a breath could lift it from the table. There are no grand instructions on it, no formula, no promise, no command to become fearless by morning. Only a simple list of things to carry back. Carry back the pause. Carry back the knowledge that the first feeling is not always the truth. Sometimes it is only the oldest messenger arriving first. Carry back the memory of the kitchen, not as a prison, but as a room you can recognize when it appears inside you. When the old contraction comes, you can say, "This is the kitchen. I know this room. I do not have to live here all day." Carry back the door, not as pressure to walk through every opportunity immediately, but as a reminder that stopping at the threshold is a pattern worth noticing. You can stand closer. You can touch the knob. You can let the body learn that more visibility does not have to mean more danger. Carry back the receipt, the one from a braver life, the one that recorded what was finally allowed, the full price, the clean thank you, the no without a long apology, the money that stayed, the good thing that was not managed away. Carry back the river beneath the floor. When the surface of life looks dry, when the old story says nothing is moving, remember that some movements begin underground. Not everything that matters can be seen in the first hour of morning. Carry back the blank page. Most of all, carry that. Because the blank page is what gives you back authorship in small doses. It says you do not need to rewrite the whole life by noon. You only need to notice where the old hand reaches for the pen. You only need to pause long enough to ask, is this the story I choose, or the one I inherited? That question is enough to begin. The book understands that you will forget. It expects forgetting. Human beings forget what they know when the day becomes loud. They forget at the grocery store, in the inbox, in the meeting, in the moment someone asks for a number and the body wants to disappear, in the moment a payment arrives and the old emergency says, move it out, spend it down, restore the familiar edge. Forgetting is not failure. Forgetting is why pages can be reread. When you forget, return not with shame but with recognition. Ah, the old story found the microphone again. Ah, the house of voices is speaking. Ah, the number became a verdict for a moment. Ah, I am at the door. That word, ah, can be a doorway. It is softer than judgment. It creates a small space around the pattern. And sometimes, a small space is all the new life needs to enter. The page you carry back is not meant to make you perfect. It is meant to make you available. Available to see. Available to choose. Available to receive the good thing without immediately searching for the exit. Available to practical care without panic. Available to ambition without shame. Available to money as information, as movement, as responsibility, as possibility, but not as the final measure of your worth. Read the page slowly now, even if your eyes are closed. I can notice the room I am in. I can let a number be information. I can receive one good thing without fleeing. I can take one honest action. I can return to the blank page. These are not affirmations to force onto the mind. They are handles, simple handles you can reach for when the old story becomes heavy. Perhaps tomorrow you will use only one. Perhaps you will remember none of them until days from now, when a familiar fear rises and something in you suddenly recognizes its shape. That is enough. A page carried back does not need to be unfolded every hour to be real. It can rest in the pocket of the body. It can wait until needed. And when needed, it will be there. The book slides the page toward you, not into your hand, into your keeping. Take it gently. Carry it lightly. The life ahead of you does not need another burden. It needs one true page. Chapter 19. The book closes. The page remains. The book is closing now, not because the work is finished, because the night has been given what it can carry. The cover returns to stillness. The room around you is the same room and not the same. The table is the table. The dark is the dark. Your body is still being held by the surface beneath it. Nothing in the visible world may have changed, but visible change is rarely the first change. The first change is often a pause where there used to be a reflex, a breath where there used to be panic, a question where there used to be obedience, a little room around an old sentence. Tonight the book showed you the kitchen, the threshold, the house of voices, the receipt, the river, the number, the first honest action, the blank page, the morning before the world enters. It did not show these things so you could become someone else by force. It showed them so you could recognize the parts of your life that were never truly yours to begin with. The fear may have been inherited. The shrinking may have been learned. The urgency may have been practiced. The refusal to receive may have been protected by old loyalty. But the next page is not inherited. The next page is lived. And if some part of you wants a louder ending, let that part rest too. The deepest changes are often shy at first. They do not arrive with thunder. They arrive as a different reaction to a familiar moment. A little less collapse when the bill appears. A little less apology when the price is spoken. A little less urgency when money arrives. A little more patience when the old story tries to prove it is still in charge. Do not underestimate these small differences. A life is not usually redirected by one heroic act. It is redirected by the first inch of honesty repeated until the body starts to believe it. It is redirected by the morning you pause before checking, The afternoon you ask instead of assuming. The evening you let rest be rest without turning it into another thing to earn. The book will not follow you as a command. It will follow you as a question. What room am I in? Who is holding the pen? What is the first honest action? Return to these questions when the day becomes loud. They are small enough to carry and strong enough to open a door. When morning comes, leave one sentence below this recording if something in you is ready. Not a review, not proof, just a sentence. I allow the flow to return. Or, if that is too much, write this. I will notice the first page. Return when you are ready. The book opens only in the dark, but what it changes is carried into the morning. Sleep well. The page remains,